I love this movie. This movie rocks, and if you hate it, well, you're wrong. I'm sorry, that was wrong of me. I apologize. The Chronicles of Riddick. You probably already figured this out, but I love this movie. I love all the Riddick stuff, actually. I think that it's far better property in mythos than it gets credit for, and that's why I want to talk about it. At the same time, though, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are problems. Big problems. First, a history lesson. The Chronicles of Riddick is the second feature-length film in a multimedia franchise spanning live-action cinema, animation, books, and video games. The series began with Pitch Black, a tight little independent horror film released in 2000. Shot for around $25 million, Pitch Black on the whole did quite well for itself, drawing in around $50 million just from the box office. As far as independent films go, that's a smashing success. Around the same time, The Matrix, a medium-budget sci-fi film, had pulled in over $700 million and was already slated for 2 sequels to be released by Warner Brothers in 2003, whetting the mainstream appetite for science fiction. Top it off, Vin Diesel followed up Pitch Black with The Fast and the Furious, which pulled in over $200 million at the box office. So, in 2001, science fiction was marketable and Vin Diesel was marketable. Because of that, something amazing happened. Universal Pictures gave David Twohy and Vin Diesel over $100 million to make a sequel, and in turn, they delivered unto us the wonder that is The Chronicles of Riddick. Universal got most of their money back. Well. Okay, in the end they got their money back, just not from box office receipts. The film barely broke even. Now, in the scale of things, it made a little over $100 million, which is double what Pitch Black pulled in. The only problem was that it also cost a little over $100 million to make. See, it turns out that all the things that make this movie interesting and unique are also the kind of things that tend to alienate a mainstream audience. Doubly so for an audience already cooled by the Matrix revolutions. So, by the time Riddick was released in mid-2004, a lot of the audience just kinda I don't feel like I need to spend all that much time talking about all the problems, just because they're all kind of obvious. This isn't one of those situations where I tell you something is bad, but then reveal that it's bad for reasons that are kind of obscure. The Chronicles of Riddick is bad for almost all the reasons that you think it's bad. The plot is helter-skelter, the story editing is uneven, characters repeatedly make stupid decisions, some of the effects are terrible, and the dialogue is muddy and often hilariously bad.
It's been a long time since I smelled beautiful.
Over and over again, instead of shooting him with their guns, the necromongers charge at Riddick with melee weapons, even though he clearly outclasses them. I mean, the first time it kind of makes sense when Riddick, challenges the one guy to a duel, because, it's a duel. Okay, I can buy that, but then they take him back to their ship to scan his brain, and to do this, they turn on, super gravity, and we see that he can't get out of this, right? So look at this room. He's down in a pit, stuck to the floor with super gravity, and his only weapon is a knife that's also stuck to the floor. And they find out he's a Furian, and people are all, kill him, kill him! But instead of just shooting him a million times from up above, they shut off the super gravity so that dudes can charge him with their giant pickaxes thing, and they get predictably, stabbed in the face. So, yeah. Plot contrivances. There's more, but it's all just regular nonsense like outrunning sunrise and looking really pretty while living in a triple max prison, and you know what, I'm kind of okay with all of that. It's cheesy and campy at times.
What's that? I'll kill you with my teacup.
But that's part of what I love, and it all ties into what makes Riddick great. See, Riddick is different, unusual, but it's also built out of some old material. The story of Chronicles of Riddick is basically a retelling of Conan the Destroyer. Riddick is Conan in space, and it draws on a lot of that classic pulp fiction world view. You have a barbaric warrior forged in captivity, outcast from proper society, a holy man, a mystic woman, a doomed love, a death cult, revenge, violence, and a running theme of upsetting the status quo. Typically, movies of these sorts, meaning sci-fi action movies with budgets north of $100 million, follow pretty tightly to the Joseph Campbell Monomyth. This is the hero's journey that you've seen dozens, if not hundreds of times before. The hero is called to action, rejects the call, faces supernatural adversity, accepts the call, is initiated into a fantastic secret world, is defeated, recovers, defeats evil, and returns to his people with power. The core themes revolve around a weak character becoming strong and the codification of a morally superior power structure in the triumph of good over evil. Luke learns to use the Force and blows up the Death Star, Neo becomes the One and defeats Smith, so on and so forth. There's more to it than that, but the important thing to note here is first, the transformation, a weak character becomes strong, and second, the triumph of good over evil. Riddick instead starts with a character who is already fantastic and exceptional. When we first meet him in Pitch Black, Richard B. Riddick is already stronger and faster than most trained soldiers, and he already has a supernatural power in his ability to see in the dark. We don't see him learn these things or grow into them. He's already that way, and over the course of the film, he doesn't transform much. He learns a few new things about himself, changes a bit his character, but it's not a transformation. He doesn't grow into any new power or capacity. This ties into the second point. At the end of the Chronicles of Riddick, he stumbles into power. It's not something he sought or even something he was encouraged to pursue, but rather something he comes into in the pursuit of personal goals, rescuing Kira and killing Lord Marshall. Rather than re-establishing the status quo or restoring the world to a natural balance, Riddick disrupts the entire balance of power, leaving the future as one big question mark.
You keep what you kill.
Now, you might have noticed that I haven't actually done a plot summary yet, and that's kind of intentional. This is all part of one of the other things that I love so much about the film, and that's the world that it builds. This world is dense, lived in, and quite alien to our own. To me, this is admirable, but yeah, it can be hard to follow at times. Riddick is an escaped convict on the run from bounty hunters. He thought he was safe in hiding, so he picks off most of the crew and scares the Captain Toombs into telling him who gave them the lead. Toombs tells Riddick that it was an anonymous tip from the planet of New Mecca, which tips off Riddick that it was probably Imam, one of the two other survivors from Pitch Black, and the only person who knew where Riddick was going. Riddick steals the ship and confronts Imam, who tells him about the Necromongers, an interstellar death cult led by the Lord Marshall, who is a half-dead supernatural. The Necromongers are coming to convert or kill everyone in the galaxy on their search for a place called the Underverse. Riddick also finds out that Jack, the other survivor from Pitch Black, who's actually a girl, got herself arrested and thrown into a prison called Crematoria because she was trying to find Riddick. The police try and arrest Riddick, he kills them, the Necromongers arrive, all hell breaks loose, and Imam is killed in the skirmish. Later, at this recruitment rally type thing, I don't know, Lord Marshall rips out some guy's soul, everyone's all like, ah, what's going on? And then Riddick calls out the killer, and this is where we've got the duel. We talked about this earlier. Riddick wins the fight. The ending is set up when Lord Marshall hands him the knife and tells Riddick, you keep what you kill. Dame Vako uses sex appeal to lure Riddick into the Necromonger's ship where the oracles determine that he's a Furian. Riddick escapes, Toombs and his new crew show up, Riddick lets them capture them, he tricks them into taking him to Crematoria where he finds Jack, who now calls herself Kira, and they fight off guards and stuff while Toombs and his crew argue with the guards about how much bounty they should be getting for Riddick. But then Lord Vako and the blonde guy show up, people shoot each other, Riddick and some convicts race the guard to the ship, but then Vako lands, there's a fight, Kira is captured, blonde guy saves Riddick and reveals he's a Furian too before killing himself by standing out in the sun. Riddick takes the ship, infiltrates the Necromonger ship, finds Kira has already been converted, fights Lord Marshall, almost loses before Kira saves him, she gets thrown into a spike, Vako attempts a coup, but Lord Marshall teleports away right as Riddick stabs his ghost, killing him. Riddick and Kira share a few last words, she dies, Riddick takes a timeout on Lord Marshall's throne, Vako reminds him that you keep what you kill, then all the Necromongers bow before Riddick. They turn off the planet killer things, credits roll. I don't blame you if you fell behind. The Chronicles of Riddick throws a lot at the audience. Characters are carried forward from Pitch Black, we're told about religions and worlds and groups of people, terminology and slang are tossed around, and the movie doesn't explain much of it at all. There is no audience surrogate, no first day on the job trainee that everyone patiently explains everything to. This is a bit of a noble flaw to me. Technically, Screenwriting 101, it's not the way you should do things, but if you're willing to put in a bit of effort as a viewer, then it accomplishes something you just don't get by doing things the right way. On one hand, it's alienating to try and keep up with all the new and strange information, but at the same time, the atmosphere is just that bit more believable when the characters act like this is all kinda normal, and the world is more intriguing when you don't have all the answers. This folds into the film's overall aesthetic, both in terms of story and style. Now, I'm a fan of both Star Wars and Star Trek, but I love that Chronicles of Riddick looks nothing like either one of them. Instead, it draws on the aesthetics of Warhammer, heavy metal, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Frank Herbert, and Boris Vallejo. It's a world where the weird, the strange, the freaks, the kinks, the exotic, and the fantastic are common. The heroes are outcasts, criminals, loners, and minorities fighting back against Whitey and his invasive military death cult. There is no galactic order, no federation of planets, just feudal city-states, private prisons, bounty hunters, and a whole lot of empty space. I love the armor, the weapons, and the monolithic temple ships and the haphazard blend of magic and space travel. Even Star Wars and Star Trek in their vast, expanded universe never got quite as weird, quite as imaginative as Riddick does. To top it off, even with the cheese and the confusion, it's still a really enjoyable, really watchable film. Is it great art? No. It's interesting art, though. It's different. It's a trashy, pulpy load of anti-establishment wish fulfillment, and I think it's worth your time. In the words of Pauline Kael, the movies are so rarely great art that if we cannot appreciate great trash, we shouldn't go at all. This, my friends, is great trash.
Angle of approach. Not good.